Hey y'all, what's up? Before I get back to braiding my hair for this He and She Summit, which is about to bless me tomorrow, God gave me this word yesterday to share, which is Matthew 16:13 through 23. All right, starting at verse 13. When Jesus came to the region of Caesarea Philippi, he asked his disciples, "Who do people say that the Son of Man is?" "Well," they replied, "some say John the Baptist, some say Elijah, and others say Jeremiah or one of the other prophets." Then he asked them, "But who do you say I am?" Simon Peter asked, "You are the Messiah, the Son of the living God." Jesus replied, "You are blessed, Simon, son of John, because my Father in heaven has revealed this to you. You did not learn this from any human being. Now I say to you that you are Peter, which means rock. And upon this rock I will build my church, and all the powers of hell will not conquer it. I will give you the keys of the kingdom of heaven. Whatever you forbid on earth will be forbidden in heaven, and whatever you permit on the earth will be permitted in heaven." Then he sternly warned his disciples not to tell anyone that he was the Messiah. From then on, Jesus began to tell his disciples plainly that it was necessary for him to go to Jerusalem and that he would suffer many terrible things at the hands of the elders, the leading priests, and the teachers of religious law. He would be killed, but on the third day he would be raised from the dead. After this, verse 22. But Peter took him aside and began to reprimand him. Like, how you gonna reprimand Jesus, first of all, for saying such things? "Heaven forbid, Lord," he said. "This will never happen to you." Jesus turned to Peter and said, "Get away from me, Satan. You are a dangerous trap to me. You are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's." So the main thing that I got from this, and Jesus gave Peter this power to forbid and, to permit certain things, right? And the first thing that Peter uses his power on is to try to get Jesus to not do this and go to the cross and everything. I mean, he has good intentions behind it. He just don't want to see his friend hurt. That's Jesus. He don't want him to be crucified. But that wasn't in God's plan for him to not go to the cross. So in this, he was going against the will of God. And so it was basically him stepping outside of what God has for him to permit and forbid. And he was operating out of his flesh. As it says in verse 23, you are seeing things merely from a human point of view, not from God's. And another thing I want to point out is when it says, Jesus said, "Get away from me, Satan." He realized that it wasn't Peter in that moment, but it was the enemy trying to work through Peter and works through the gift and pervert the gift and authority that was presented to Peter and that was given to Peter, not just presented. In that moment, trying to pervert it to get Jesus off track. Saying that Jesus even said, "This is a dangerous trap to me." Because you see later on, whenever we get to the Garden of Gethsemane, that Jesus didn't even want to do this. He said, "Lord, if it be your will, take this cup from me." He didn't want to go to the cross. It was a sacrifice. It wouldn't be a sacrifice if he was just like, "Oh, let me go to the cross. Like, I want to go to..." Like, who wants to be crucified in front of everybody? Like, that's public and embarrassing. Anyway, but yeah, in that moment, since I believe Peter was one of the people who actually went up with him to the Garden of Gethsemane along with James and John, because those were the three closest people to him. So why wouldn't Satan use a person close to Jesus to try and convince him that that's not what he's supposed to be doing? Anyway, gist of this is we need to be careful with the authority that God gives us. He gives us the same authority that Peter has to bind and loose things, to forbid and permit things. and let it be on heaven as it, like, let it be on earth as it is in heaven. Like, that's a prayer. I believe that's seen in Matthew 6 around like verse 5 or 9 or something. Like, we have this authority. So we need to make sure that we're not using it for our own selfish gain, but rather using it in the way that God intends for us to like use it. This refers kind of to how, there's a prerequisite to asking what you want from God. Because in order for you to ask what you want and it be permitted, you first have to remain in God and Him remain in you. So that way your desires line up with His. And then you can ask what you will and it will be given to you. I believe in the same way here, you have to make sure you're remaining in God to make sure that the gift He has given you, the gift of authority He has given you, is used in the way that He sees fit. I think that is it. So, yeah, I'm gonna get back to my hair. Pray for me.